I got it started at 0, so we are good to go whenever you're ready, Jesse.
Okay. There's no feedback on either of your ends, like any echoes or nothing?
No, it's all good.
No.
All right. All right. We are back here on Table Talk Podcast. We are joined tonight by Chris from across the pond. He runs a very popular Instagram page, goes by the name of Strange States. Chris, thank you for joining us tonight.
No problem, Jesse. Jeremy, good to see you.
Nice to see you
It's
too,
good to
sir.
meet you. It's good to see your. It's good to connect your name with a face. It's always good to do that.
Yeah. That's what the police say.
that is also correct. Chris, if you could tell everybody exactly about your Instagram page and what exactly you do on it.
Yeah, no problem. So, Strange States came about from just a love of anything strange and paranormal. Always loved watching the X-Files as a kid. I had Scully on my wall in a bra and pants, which I loved. And then it, evolved from there, really. I started posting a few things that people may have seen in the news and stuff, and I've got lots of, I'm quite surprised, really. I've got lots of messages about, where's this story from? Can you tell me more about such and such? And it just grew from there, really. I've been going about 8 months, which it's not long, really. And I've got over, there's about 4,000 people on there now, which is nice. It's good.
If I can comment, I've actually seen, since I started following you, I've actually seen you've been growing quite quickly.
Yeah. I was surprised, really, because I used to use Instagram quite a lot years ago, because I used to fight. I was an MMA fighter, so I used to use it just to keep people up to date with my fights and stuff. And it was just really for friends and family and just people who liked MMA. And I had about 1,000 people on there. But I think this kind of topic is very current and very in the media eye at the minute, anything to do with UFOs and stuff. Yeah. Joe Rogan's, a big following due to these kinds of conversations. So, yeah.
Gotcha. What, now you said you kind of you gave us a little bit of your background. What do you say was the biggest turning point for you that made you want to start an Instagram page like that, to share these crazy stories from abroad? What was there a pivotal point in your life where you're like, shit, I need to start doing this?
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose it's the same with you guys, where you want to tell people or show people your interests and stuff. And most people post on Instagram about handbags, maybe going to the gym, stuff that they find interesting. But I think if you're going to have a popular Instagram page, you need to reach a broader range of people, like you guys do with this podcast. I've seen that you guys do all sorts of topics, and you talk to, interesting people. So I think that brings a lot of people and ears to what you're doing, and it's just something fun for me. I don't fight anymore, so I like to put my efforts into something and keep going with it. So yeah,
it's cool. It's not like you're ever going to run out of content.
Well, this is it.
There's always going to be some kind of crazy fucking story out there that's happening in the world that people are going to just love to hear about. There's a lot of the stuff that you post that I've seen, I've read about before, and they're interesting. I like that you don't just post a picture with a caption. You actually go into the story itself. And I think that kind of sets you apart from other BS pages that I see that'll post oh, get this conspiracy, and they just post a picture and then that's it. I kind of like what you do. You kind of get into it and I don't know, you put out more information for people, which is really helpful because you paint a whole picture, and not only the actual information, you put your perspective on it sometimes. And that's really important, because it's good to get, your perspective on it, and you make a lot of sense with a lot of the things that you say. But there's been some real crazy stories that you've posted and I'm like, whoa, how did I miss this? Is this even a real story? You've got me Googling things from time to time. Like, is this actually real?
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I get I get messages all the time saying this can't be real. This where did you find this? And
right?
it's literally from things I've seen on YouTube, and then I look into it myself. And you're right in the fact that people do just put little snippets of information and then a picture on Instagram, which is cool
Yeah.
if that's what we like. Most people just like things just for the sake of it, but I like to give people a few more facts and let them look for themselves. I'll never say to anyone on Instagram, this is actually what this is. I always leave it to them to
Mhm.
find out for themselves. And especially with, I mean, I've come across weird stories that people probably haven't heard of before or may think, and they may be made up, but when I found them, they seem pretty plausible. And I'll let them make their own minds up, and then I'll just give them the facts. And if it's interesting, it gets quite a lot of likes and quite a lot of comments. And I suppose that's why the Instagram page grows, because the algorithm grows due to interaction.
Yeah,
Which I
you do
didn't
get a
really.
lot of interaction. There's been a couple times where I actually go back to some of your older posts.
Yeah,
Just because I enjoy reading like some of the conversation between either people or you and people, and
yeah,
like you kind of learn a little bit more. So I mean,
yeah,
you definitely have like a continued interaction with people on your page, which is I think missing because most people just see a picture and they'll like it, and then they're like, oh, what else can I look at? And they're scrolling.
yeah,
You kind of like either people are gonna make the time to read your shit or they're just gonna
yeah,
keep going. So
yeah.
you kind of weed out all the all the people that are just looking to like shit and move on. But yeah, I really enjoy your page, man. You got some really cool stuff. You got some crazy shit on your page.
Yeah. There's. I mean, recently I've been looking at UFOs and stuff, and I was really interested in the Commander Fravers take on what he saw with the
Yeah,
gimbal
the
footage.
Tic Tac video.
Oh man, yeah, that's a crazy. I think that's the closest that we as humans, or in the in the media eye, that we're going to see that there is actually something that we can't explain. And that's what's always been missing. I mean, you can talk about Roswell all you like. You can talk about, different things like bent waters in England, the Rendlesham Forest stuff. You're just going on hearsay, really, and
Yeah,
that doesn't really stand up in court. And it's hard to get your head around. But with someone as plausible and as decorated as a Top Gun pilot, and I think his co-pilot, Chad, I forget his name, Chad, someone. They both saw the same thing. They videoed it, and it's there to see. And you can either
yeah.
deny it or not, but it's explicit footage of something that's not made here, which is amazing to me. And that just gets my brain working. Right, where's that from then? Who's operating that thing? And most importantly, what's the intention behind being here? That's always that's been at the forefront of like UFO stuff for me. Um,
It definitely that the release of that footage definitely like pushed the UFO phenomena like in the right direction, because it
yeah,
was like finally after like forever, it was like we had like unedited like type I don't know. I'm careful with the using the word proof, but
yeah,
it was almost like proof. It was like, okay, this is something that we can't explain. Like this is something
yeah,
that you can't look away from either. You can't say that it's BS either. I mean, it
mm,
came from the United States Navy and the United States
yeah,
Air Force. So it's like they're not just out playing a prank on people. Like they
yeah,
don't have time to do that shit. And then if you watch the different interviews with Fravor, especially the JRE episode with him,
mm,
I mean you can tell the guy doesn't bullshit. I mean he's a straight shooter. He's a professional, a decorated professional.
yeah,
He's a career guy in the military, highly well respected commander, and it's like this person has no reason to lie. And even if he had a reason to lie, where's the footage? Like he faked the footage? Like, no, I don't think so. Like
yeah.
that Fravor interview and that footage that was released, that was crazy. That was a game changer for a lot of people I know that kind of changed their perspective on things.
But if you're looking, if anyone's like looking for evidence of something that's not of this world, you can listen to the abduction stories from across the world of people saying they've been abducted. And when you say, okay, have you got any evidence, any material evidence at all? No, never is. They may have a burn mark on their arm that could have been done on a teapot. They may have their friend who was drunk at the time saying, yeah, this happened. And you can, to a certain extent, you can really see the people who've got probably, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but mental health issues maybe, that maybe they're bored and they want something to focus on, and they're saying things that are going to get a little bit of attention. And I think that's probably the case in a lot of these stories. I'm not saying that people haven't been abducted, but you've got to prove it. It's the OJ glove. Do you know what I mean? It's a hard one, but the Fravor footage is, I think, probably the most undeniable footage you can get.
I agree. It's like it was on an earlier episode. Jeremy, I think it was actually the episode where you and I and Jake talked about UFOs or aliens. I think it was like one of the first episodes that you guys had me on.
Yeah, that was before you were on the
was that
show.
even before I was
show.
a part of the podcast?
Yeah. That was like
a long time ago.
I think that was your second episode you were on.
Oh yeah, you're right. First episode we did was on extinct animals. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, we ended up talking during this episode, and I remember we were saying that there's a huge difference between a subjective truth and an objective truth, and that goes with evidence. So I could come up with subjective evidence right now on the topic of like the paranormal, because there's weird things that have happened to me in my life where I could say, well, based on my experience, my feelings, the external stimuli that I was experiencing at the time, I believe that there might be paranormal. But I don't have any proof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like the abduction stories. Like that's a subjective truth that people are like, no, I'm telling you this happened. And you either believe them or you don't, because you can't, there's no proof,
Yeah.
With that video, it was like, no, here's some objective proof that something is going on, and you can't deny that. It's not like it was on a shitty Samsung. Sorry if you have a Samsung. A shitty Samsung cell phone, and it was taken and it's all wobbly, and you can't see it barely, and it's all fuzzy. Like, no, this was like the best of the best type of videography that was done, and it was something weird. I think one of the coolest things that Fravor, and I think he did it on Joe Rogan's episode, they were explaining the physics of that craft and how it just doesn't make sense. And you can see it actually maneuver in a certain way that did not make sense. Like it should not be happening that way. And I thought that was so cool. Kind of freaked me out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the Bob Lazar story. So David Fravor and Bob Lazar talked in a hotel. I think Jeremy Corbell got them together a few times.
Yeah.
And the correlation between what they were saying was just uncanny. And they'd never met before. People have debunked Bob Lazar for years, called him a crackpot and nutball. But everything that Fravor was saying, Bob Lazar had already said.
That is true. Yeah, there was a lot of similarity. Well, not even similarity. There was a lot of like direct connections between the two about what Lazar had been saying like forever, for decades.
Yeah.
And then it was all just like, oh, by the way, here's a video of something that's going to vindicate. I mean, in my mind, I think Bob Lazar got a bad rap early on. I think if he would have like told all of his stories in today's day and age, probably would have been more well accepted.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, back in the do you remember the year that he came out publicly? I don't remember the year he came out publicly. I thought it was in the 80s, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's like the 80s was the wrong time for everything. So it's it was a bad time to start talking about how you worked at S4 or whatever it was, and you saw a UFO. Like, come on. What'd you expect, Bob? So, before we dive a little bit deeper, Jeremy actually has a question for you.
Yeah.
All right. I do this to everybody, aside for people that we already know that's there and talk about it, but do you believe in Bigfoot?
I've done quite a bit of research on this topic. I've not really published much on my Instagram page about it, but I'm planning to. It depends what you mean by Bigfoot. It depends what you mean by the creature.
That's a good answer.
If you mean, is there some kind of creature that we haven't discovered yet that's living, remotely in mountains or, in the tundra, in Russia, different types of species, then yeah, maybe, because they're discovering new creatures every day. Thousands of species just this year. I mean, we're only 6-7 weeks into 2021, and they're discovering new fish, new animals of all types, shapes, and sizes. Now, if you're talking about Bigfoot and the Hendersons, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I'd have to have some evidence of it. And hearsay is not really evidence. I mean, unless you got 400 or 500 people at one time saying we saw this and this is what happened, you're always going to be skeptical of it. I'm quite skeptical anyway. It takes a lot to convince me of something. So, I mean, do you, Jeremy? Do you believe in it?
I believe there once was. I don't believe there currently is.
Right. Okay. What brings you to that conclusion?
The fact that pretty much it hasn't been discovered yet. That's my thing, but I don't know. It's weird. Like I said, I think there was at one point in time, but currently not anymore. There's just no way, like, something that's only been caught on camera a few times, if that.
Yeah. Maybe so. I mean, it's a hard one. It's a hard one to get your head around, really, I think.
Well, Jake's going to be proud of me for that answer, though.
Yeah, Jake will be proud that you answered that. Yeah, you have to... we apologize that Jake is not here. Jake actually got stuck working a overnight shift at his job, so...
Yeah, that's fine.
We're all you got. Yeah, Jake on the podcast is the believer in Bigfoot, 100% believes in it. He does spit a good argument as to why he believes it, which is why I'm kind of sad he's not here right now. But Jeremy and I are kind of on the same page when it comes to the belief of Bigfoot. For me, I try to take a little bit more scientific approach. Like, I do believe that perhaps we're misidentifying Bigfoot as a Gigantopithecus, which did exist like 100,000 years ago, or however long it was. Because we have like skeletal proof that those were real. But I also am with Jeremy to say that, yeah, I don't believe that there's Gigantopithecus running around, the United States or Russia or whatever the fuck people are seeing Bigfoot. But then again, I have an open mind. So if I'm hiking in the woods, which I do all the time, and I see a Gigantopithecus, I will change my story.
And nobody will believe you.
That's funny. That was a good answer though, Chris, that you gave. Normally we get like a yes or no.
I just think I think you've got to work it out rationally. So if there's one, there's got to be two, and if there's two, there's got to be four, and if there's four, there's got to be eight. And if you are getting these kinds of numbers, even if it's only small numbers, someone's going to take a picture, and it's going to be not the picture of that strange black and white picture of the guy in the gorilla suit looking over his shoulder. It's got to be something better than that, and it's got to be more than a footprint. I look at it like this. I look at it like we're going into court and we've got to bring best evidence. And if we don't, then the case is going to get thrown out. And if it gets thrown out, it wasn't a good case anyway. So, Bigfoot, once someone shows me a good picture with no zips on his suit, then I think I'll believe it.
You and me both. Well,
Yeah.
maybe unbeknownst to a lot of people, the podcast actually is in the middle of filming a um, very indie amateur documentary on Bigfoot sightings in Michigan itself. So there is a lot in Michigan. I don't know why, but there is a lot in Michigan. And we've been filming for actually since September, right, Jeremy? September?
Roughly around
Isn't
there,
that
yeah.
when we started
September,
filming?
October area.
All right, so we've been filming for quite a few months, and we're putting together just a documentary on it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that would be really cool if we ran into one. It'd be really, really
We'd be
cool if we ran
famous
into
as
one.
hell.
But
Let's do it.
yeah, we ran into some really cool coyotes though when we were up in the Great North, but no Bigfoot.
Do you have like mountain lions and stuff up there?
So we have mountain lions like further up in the Upper Peninsula, I believe. But where we're at in the area of Michigan, the biggest predator that we'll have is like a black bear.
Oh, okay.
And they don't.
That's not even around us really
if you're
either.
just walking around just yelling bear, they're not gonna fuck with you. They're kind of pussies in Michigan. So
and where we're at, because we're Metro Detroit, there's like the biggest predator here is maybe a hawk. Carry your dog away. Yeah. But other than that, we have nothing really here.
Yeah, we don't have anything in England. Rabbits. That's
He doesn't have it. There's no animals in England.
No, just humans.
You want to see an animal, you just go to the pub.
Oh God, yeah. When they're open, yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, how's the? You guys got some crazy restrictions over there because of COVID? What's going on?
It's crazy. Is
it?
Yeah, it's a shame really, because I've got a lot of friends with businesses. I've got business myself as well, and I've had to stop working through that business just because I make short films as well, so I've not been able to do any work. I've already paid actors, and they're just sitting there doing nothing, which is not their fault. Yeah, the government's a little bit strange over here. We're leaning more towards how can I put it without sounding like I hate the government? More of a socialist way of living, and that's good for some people. I don't think it works. I don't think it does. I think you have to have money in the country, and if your economic future is in jeopardy, you have to make certain decisions, and I don't think that's happening over here. State to state, I know in your country is different, all over, but I think at least you've got the options of more freedom of speech. You've got more leeway of what you can do. In this country, it's a little bit different. I mean, I'll say what the fuck I want. I don't care. I will talk how I want. I will act how I want, as long as I'm not hurting anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's good for me. But in this country, the police will knock your door if they think you've got more than 3 people in your house. That's as ridiculous as it is.
That's crazy. So, like in our area, of course, the city police, they have ordinances that they had to follow from executive orders from our governor.
Yeah.
But nobody was enforcing it. I mean, and we know lots of police in our area. Myself, I work with police every day.
Yeah.
Nobody was enforcing it. I mean, it wasn't even like the media would put out, police are enforcing and kicking people out of their get-togethers and writing citation. I don't know where that was happening, but it didn't happen in our area. Everybody kind of understood, all right, it's an executive order, but we're not really going to follow it.
Yeah, the only time I really heard about police breaking up something, if it was a party or something, and it was later at night. Other than that, I heard nothing. Like Jesse said, nothing about cops going to people's houses. And
me being me, and I don't like to party.
Yeah,
they could break up all the parties for all I care. I don't give a shit.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Everybody should just drink at home, anyways. It's safer.
True.
Yeah.
Oh man. Chris, I am very curious. Jeremy and I are very curious as to what's some of the craziest stories that people have sent you, personal stories. So stuff that we couldn't Google, maybe. You got any crazy doozies up in your head?
Yeah. there's a couple that spring to mind. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll start with an experience I had first, if that's all right.
Oh, a personal story.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we're down. Go ahead.
Okay. So where I'm from in the north of England, there's a place called Pontefract, which is it's a little town next to my town. And a friend of mine, she said, "Do you want to fancy going to a haunted house?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be cool." So me, her, and her friend ended up going to a place called 30 East Drive. I don't know if you've heard of it.
It doesn't ring a bell, no.
Okay. It's fairly well known in our country, probably not as well known in yours. It's meant to be the most haunted house in the UK, and I was curious to go. So we booked it through a travel company that do these little tours, and it looks like a council house. Now in England, look, we have council houses where, and in council estates, you might call them, what do you call them? Like tenement buildings and stuff like that, where the local authority provides housing. So this house is unoccupied. So we go, and it's about 9 o'clock at night, and we meet a few other people who were due to have a look around the house and see if they could see any ghosts and stuff like that. And I'm very skeptical. I've got to see. I'm a bit like you. I've got to see it. I want some evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who was there, who was running it, was a bit, over dramatic and a little bit. Well, you'll see the stuff tonight, and then the first half an hour we were trying to like do table tipping and like glass moving on tables, and nothing was working, nothing was happening. So I said to him, "Would you mind if I went upstairs by myself?" He set up lots of equipment as well, like cameras in all the rooms. So a little bit of history on the place. In 1966, a family moved in called the Pritchards. And they were a normal working class family, didn't have any links to religion or, silly things like, telling stories that weren't true. But they started reporting very violent, malevolent goings on in the house. Plants leaving the pots and flying across the room. Shadows appearing in the corner of the room and disappearing. One of the little girls, who was called Diane, she saw figures in her room. Now, this was quite well documented at the time in the local news, and then it made national.
And this was in 1966, you said?
Yeah, it more or less started from day one of them moving in.
Okay.
So people did research, and it turns out that there was a monk, a black monk. And now that sounds really silly, doesn't it? I mean, what ghosts are there? Black monks, nuns, stuff like that. Sounds daft, but there was a black monk who apparently raped and killed a small girl years and years and years ago, 200-300 years ago. And he was hung. He was hung from a tree that was 2 to 3 meters away from the house that was connected to this family. There's no proof of this, but there's just little bits of snippets of information. Gotcha. So I asked the guy who was running the event, "Can I go upstairs on my own for a little bit? Because if anything's going to happen, it's not going to happen with you here. It's not going to happen with loads of people here where we can get evidence. I want to see for myself." So the house was kitted out like it was still in like the 1960s, 70s. It was still made to feel like it was back in that time. Posters on the wall of David Cassidy, toys from that era. So I went upstairs and I sat on the bed and it wasn't the original bed, but it was our bed that was meant to look like it. Gotcha. I sat there quiet, and it's weird for me to say this because I'm a real skeptic, but I was sat there and my back was against the wall on the bed, and I started hearing scratching, like a cat would scratch down a wall. Oh. And I thought to myself, is it the water pipes? Is it, someone downstairs? It's echoing upstairs. So I shouted downstairs, "Is anyone moving around downstairs?" And they said, "No, we're watching you on CCTV." We're watching you on camera. No one's moving around. We're just watching you. And I thought, maybe it was just a mouse, maybe in the walls. I thought, fair enough. So I lie back, and now I'm on Facebook as well. I'm going live doing it, and the scratching is getting louder and louder, like someone's got a garden rake now on the wall. And I shout down to the people downstairs, "You've got to hear that. The audio mic has got to pick that up." Couldn't hear anything, but it was as clear as day. So my friend, she came up, and while she was there, she didn't hear anything. But when she went back downstairs, it started again. And then I started hearing a little bit of like a bump. It started like a ball was being dropped just onto the floor over and over again. I thought, where's that coming from? And it was under the bed.
Oh.
I'm in the pitch black. I've only got my phone on as any kind
Oh, wait,
of
you
light.
didn't even have lights on?
No, it was pitch black.
I thought it was.
And
See, I was imagining all this with like you had like light somewhere, and you're like, no, actually, I couldn't see anything. Jesus Christ.
No, it was pitch black. So I used my phone screen as a little light, and stupidly, because I'm stupid like that, I looked under the bed.
You're a brave man.
Oh yeah, and there was a few old toys under the bed, but there was a green ball, a small bouncy green ball, and it was as God's my witness, moving from side to side on its own. Not a big movement, maybe 3 or 4 inches side to side, but the house wasn't moving, and I wasn't moving, and the floor wasn't moving, so there was no reason for this ball to be moving, and that in itself shocked me. And my logical brain thought, right, it's got to be the guy downstairs controlling it. It's got to be. He's got to have some kind of little gimbal thing in it, and he's controlling it on his phone or something. This cannot be happening. And I captured it on, a portion of it on my phone. But when you look at, I'll have to send you the link to it because I've still got a small piece of footage of it. But when you see it, you can't really see it moving that well on camera, which is always frustrating because you want evidence. So I picked the ball up, I grabbed it, and I looked at it, I shook it. It was just a rubber ball. I thought, right, okay, I'll just put that on the table next to the bed. I sat back on the bed, and then I get a text message through from my friend who's downstairs, and she said, "You won't believe what we've seen around you. All these orbs, all these little lights in the room, like just dancing around you." And I was thinking, I can't see anything. It felt a bit colder, but I can't see anything. And then, so the ball is now on the table, and I'm sat now facing the hallway, looking through the doorway, and the door's on my left, facing into the room, not out of the room. And I'm looking at my phone, and then suddenly the door slams. God's honest truth, the door slams. Jeez. Pitch black still. The ball I can hear rolls off the table and straight up on the bed. And I can't explain it. I cannot explain what was in that room, but it wasn't right. It wasn't correct. It was the weirdest experience I've probably ever had. And I've had some weird experiences. But yeah, that really stunned me. And as we went through the night, other people started to get different kinds of feelings about stuff. And there were rooms in there that were absolutely freezing cold, even though the heating was on. Freezing cold.
Wow.
And the event was about to last from 9 o'clock at night until 6 in the morning. And we left at 2 o'clock. I didn't want to be in that. And I'm not scared of much. And I didn't want to be in there. I just felt like something was saying, go away. You need to leave. And I've never had that feeling. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, it worked. Yeah, definitely.
That's fucking weird, man.
Very weird, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's very weird. That gave me that part when you said you could hear the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Like after the door shut, I had like fucking goosebumps over here. I got like, you can't see it because it's almost immediately off camera, but I just have like this blacked out condo behind me.
Yeah.
And my spouse and I have experienced really weird shit happening here and at another location that we lived in.
Yeah.
So like you saying that little objects are moving around on their own, that just kind of like spoke to home real quick. So I'm like sitting here just kind of like looking over my shoulder, like just
Yeah,
had some
it's a
weird
weird.
shit happen here.
I think people's
Now,
experience.
just this is a little off topic,
Yeah,
but it's only because I'm a nerd. I have to bring this up, and I just want to poke your brain on it because it seems like you and I are pretty skeptical about like most things unexplained, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Have you heard? It's has to do with physics. Have you heard of the spontaneous collapse theory in physics?
No, I've not heard of that one.
Okay, so spontaneous collapse is a theory proposed by physicists that take a, I don't know, a table. So a table is made up of a whole bunch of electrons, just billions and billions of electrons. I don't have the number because I'm not actually a physicist. Um, I'm just a guy with a podcast. So a table has like billions of electrons. But you take one electron and it has like 1 in a millionth chance of isolating itself, and it collapses. So the energy, it like sparks some heat and then it collapses, so it stops moving, it stops like existing for a second.
Yeah.
And it has the potential of doing something unknown, like something that you can't predict.
Yeah.
So there's this theory that, so you have now if it's a single electron, it could say that's going to take maybe a million years for it to actually isolate itself and stop moving. So that's how big of a chance that it has, so to speak, or
Yeah.
small of a chance of happening, however you look at it. But if you have a table that is, say, billions and billions of electrons, that takes that length of time where something could spontaneously do that, and it shortens that length of time. So I've always had this theory, and I obviously have no way of proving it. I've always had this theory that maybe things that move spontaneously, because mind you, an electron will do this when you're not observing it directly.
Yeah.
Which brings me to think like maybe, just maybe, things that move, like when a door shuts, maybe that's just so happen that those electrons decided to just spontaneously collapse and a door moved. Now that's just me just opening a door and just seeing if that's even remotely something that you would ever think. But because I'm not a skeptic when it comes to paranormal stuff very much anymore because of the stuff that's happened to me in the past.
Yeah.
I used to be a huge skeptic. But even with things that I technically would say that I believe, like the paranormal, I still like try to explain things away. Like, because I've had shit move on me before, and I like, it would be easy. It's very easy for me or you who's seen, the ball moving to say like, oh, it's paranormal. But should we stop there or should we continue to try to be skeptical? You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so for me, I look at it in terms of, I try and look at it in terms of going to court and proving a case. So the ball, for example, can I prove that something not of this world was moving the ball and took the ball off the table and back underneath the bed? I can't prove anything. There was a really good, he's died now, Christopher Hitchens. Have you heard of Christopher Hitchens?
I have heard of him. Yeah.
Brilliant man, great mind. But he had a saying that was, what's more likely? That was his opening gambit with most of the religious stuff that he ever talked about. He was an atheist. And most of the stuff that he talked about was, okay, if you're going to talk about God, if you're going to talk about Jesus, what's more likely? Did the Virgin Mary sleep with someone behind a fella's back, or did she immaculately get conceived of a
I've
baby?
heard this exact argument before, and it's a good argument. I'm not saying like I'm into like religious bashing or anything,
Yeah,
but objectively, that's a solid argument.
yeah,
Like, I'm really glad you brought him up because I do know that quote from him,
yeah.
and I mean, a lot of people need to think like that. Like, okay, that's a great story, but what's more likely?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, I didn't know whether the guy had any control of the ball that was downstairs and he wanted more people to come to his events, which is savvy, it's smart. I mean, or
Yeah.
was it that the house was maybe rattling from something happening next door at the time? Could be. So while you've got all those little questions in the ballpark, you can't immediately jump to ghost. The scratching on the back of the wall, it could have been pipes, it could have been insects behind me, it could have been ants. So you can't
Regardless
immediately
of
jump
what it
to.
was, that would be scary as hell.
I I shit my pants that night, and I don't mind telling you. Yeah,
That's fair. We had so my spouse and I had it was I believe in October. It was either
yeah,
late September or October of last year. We came home to a mirror that was hanging up in our bedroom.
yeah,
It was located on like down the hall in front of my daughter's bedroom, and we didn't put it there. It was like on the ground. So like, long story short, when we left the house, the mirror was hanging up in a bedroom at the beginning of the condo, up against a wall, not even close to the door. We get home hours later, and the mirror has rolled all the way, which it can't roll. We tested that like 100 times that night because her and I are both pretty objective about things, and we
yeah,
try to like find logic in all things. And so we were testing to see like, okay, how could this thing even roll? But end of the story, this thing is at the end of the hall, just resting like perfectly up against my daughter's bed or door frame.
yeah,
Totally can't explain it. Totally can't explain it. And like, of course, like me, being me, I'm like, okay, well maybe let's go back to some physics here. Let's try to figure this out. Man, it don't even matter because I can't figure it out. It's
yeah,
freaky
yeah,
as hell. I can't prove anything of it. Can't prove it. No, I tried to prove it, and I can't do it. And that's like almost that's like the almost it's kind of like the cool part about shit like that. We'll never be able to prove it.
yeah. I think it's interesting for people because you can always have two takes on it. You can always have the skeptical take, which is always going to be the most logical, and then you
Yeah,
can have the open-minded take. And when those two debates start to, thrash it out, one can't really disprove the other. It's like religion. It's like atheism. I'm an atheist, but I can't prove that there's no God. I can't prove that. I can't prove that Jesus didn't exist. I can't prove that miracles don't happen. But then you go into the realms of burden of proof. The
yeah,
burden of proof is not on me to prove that there is a God, or to prove that there's a ghost, or to prove that aliens exist. The burden of proof is on the person who's claiming such a thing. Sorry, I should say the burden of proof would be on me if I was saying that aliens do exist,
yeah,
because I need solid proof. I can't expect anyone to believe me. So it's a tough one, isn't it? But it's the way of the world at the minute. People are very skeptical about anything. I mean, I suppose you've heard of 5G and the radio waves that
oh
come
yeah,
from that, cancers. I can't prove any of that because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a, you know, I don't know anything about it. So I can only go by what the experts say. It's the same with COVID. There's so much stuff that's conflicting data. It's hard. It's hard.
yeah. We actually had a few episodes back. We had a healthcare worker that was on our podcast who had been working in the front lines, so to speak.
Mhm.
And his job was to take the numbers of positive COVID tests and submit them to the CDC.
Yeah.
And like he's not a skeptic whatsoever. He obviously doesn't think that COVID is like a hoax or anything because he saw it firsthand. But like he was pretty objective about like the numbers, like especially in Michigan and how they ultimately were not adding up to what he thought that the media was saying, but yeah, it was actually really cool to talk to him. We actually had no idea he was going to talk about that stuff when we got him on the podcast, but it was actually really cool. What about, that was a really creepy, because you gave me goosebumps, man. That was a really creepy personal story of yours. What about like because I remember you told me earlier you have people submitting stories to you to strange states. So like, what's like some of the, like, give me like one or two like that really stood out to you that were just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, because they were personal experiences or supposedly personal experiences, I couldn't really research if any of this was true. So I was just going on fact value. But there was a couple. There was one. Okay, so it's not so much paranormal, but really odd. So this guy was he was on a dating app, and he was scrolling through different people that he liked the look of, and it was quite a big message he sent me, and then he actually showed me the dating app. So he was scrolling through, and he saw a girl that he liked, started talking to her, and he worked quite long hours, and he worked nights. That's why he was on this dating app. And he was scrolling through, found a girl. They started having a conversation, really getting on. They liked all the same things. And he eventually, and the guy, he said he was quite a shy guy. He wasn't really somebody who would go to bars and meet girls and stuff. And he eventually decided to meet up. And he was only about, I think he was 22 or 23. So he wasn't, an older guy. And the girl was about 19, 20. And they decided to meet up. And they were going to meet in a place called Leeds, which is in Yorkshire, which is where he was from, but she was just from another part of Leeds. It's quite a big area. So they never FaceTimed or anything. They just always talked through message, and he never thought anything of it. So he ended up going to the train station to meet her, and she was going to meet him at the train station. And he was waiting there. He turned up. I think he had some flowers and stuff. He waited for about 20, 30 minutes. No sign of her. So he messaged her and said, look, if you held up, that's cool. No problem. We can rearrange. And then he gets a message from an unknown number. And it said, this is, I forget her name now, but we'll call her Megan. This is Megan's dad. I've got her car. I've had to take her back home. She's not very well, but she said, for me to come and get you, and I'll take you back to our house, and you can meet her there. So the guy's not daft. He's not stupid. So he said, I'd rather not. I wanted to meet Megan, not her dad. But he said, look, it's going to be cool. I'll take you to her. I'll drop you off, and I'll go out the house while you just have a date night in. And she's been talking about you for a long time. So reluctantly, the guy said, yeah, okay, where do you want me to meet? So the guy said, well, there's this location that I know of in Leeds. It's called Kirkstall Road. It's a big, long road. And the guy says, okay. So he walks down to this Kirkstall Road. And now Kirkstall Road is quite an industrial area. It's, probably like Detroit, that kind of feel. And he's waiting there. No one's turning up. So he messages this guy back, and he says, look, I'm waiting at where you said to meet you. And as he's messaging, and it's dark as well, this is the other side of it. So it's dark, so it's not looking like it's a really nice place to be. So this car's pulling up, an old car, a shitty old car, and window comes down, and there's an old guy in there, probably about 60-ish, and he's just dirty. The guy said he just looked dirty. The car was a mess. There was like bottles and food cartons everywhere in the car. And as he's bent down to look in and talk to the guy, the guy said, look, get in. I'll take you to see Megan. She's waiting. And he's just about to get into the car when the police come behind this guy's car, 2 cop cars. And apparently they've been monitoring this guy for weeks and weeks and weeks. He
The
had
supposed dad.
the supposed dad. He had been going on various dating sites, posing as women to meet men in order to bring them back to his house in order to do God knows what. And
Holy
as the
shit.
police got there, this guy's like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And like one of the cops has took him to one side and said, "Look, this is nothing to do with you. You're not in any trouble. But this guy, we've been monitoring this guy for weeks. We've had reports of him trying to meet guys." So the guy's thinking, "Jesus, I've had a lucky escape here." Um, but then he's then spoken to one of the detective constables after the event. And when they've got to this guy's flat, which is on the outskirts of Leeds, they have found everything from bondage equipment to shackles on the walls, um, various paraphernalia of torture. And they said if he'd have got hold of this guy, because he was the closest that ever come to actually getting someone, that he'd have been dead. That he'd have probably killed him. And I just thought that was a really strange, lucky escape for the guy to have. And
Right.
that's, yeah, I mean, the dating app thing, I think, has always been a bit of a weird one. But yeah, he
That's
was a very
weird.
lucky. Yeah.
Hey Jeremy, it sounds like you would have got along with that guy.
Ha ha ha! You're so
Yeah, never mind,
funny.
never mind. All right, Chris. What oh, actually, I don't know why this made me think. Probably because, like you said, that they like went back to this guy's place and he had like all kinds of weird shit. So like locally here, and I'll tell this story quickly so you can get back to what you were saying. There was this old man that had lived in Detroit like all of his life. Now, I believe this story broke like 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. There was this old man, and he had lived in the same place in, I believe, the west side of Detroit.
Yeah.
And for years, he was kidnapping women like hookers, and he was killing them and like torturing them in his basement. And they just like randomly found out about this guy, and he had been doing it since like the 70s or something like that. And I remember like reading about that. Apparently, Jeremy did not read about that. His eyes just got so big. I remember reading about it in the paper. Well, the paper, Facebook.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy shit. And like, I had been doing it. Like, no one had no idea that this guy, even like family members, like had
Yeah.
no idea that like their grandpa was
Oh,
like
yeah.
fucking serial killer. And he would just like chop up bodies and dispose of them whenever he could. And it was like all done in his basement. He had like a torture chamber and all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
That crazy, crazy fucking shit. You never know. You never
When
know
was
what people
this?
are up to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What
It's a frightful world.
what else you got?
So remember when I first started putting the UFO stuff up and the ghosts and everything else onto Instagram. Again, I don't know how true this is. At the time, I thought this is a bit of a far-fetched story, but it interested me because I thought it was weird. So there was a girl who was she was from America. I can't remember what state. It was a while back, but there was a girl from America, and she was out of work at the time. So she was trawling through the ads in the local paper a few years ago, trawling through the ads in the local paper, and she came across a leaflet distributing business. So that the business would get leaflets from takeaways and fast food places, and you would distribute the leaflets out, and you get paid. Not great money, but it was a job.
Mhm.
So she rang up the ad, and a woman answered, and she said, "Yeah, the job's yours if you want it. The hours are to suit, so you just go and post these things when you want, as long as they get delivered. It's cool." She said, "Okay, yeah. When will you deliver the leaflets?" I mean, she said, "Well, what we'll do is we'll meet you in a certain area. We'll give you the leaflets, and if you could do it, 24 hours, 48 hours after that, that'd be great. But we don't do house calls. We don't deliver the leaflets to you. You've got to collect them off us." And she had a car, and she thought, fair enough, no worries. So the first alarm bell started ringing when the woman said the area that she wanted to meet, which was again an industrial type place, a bit of a rundown area, and it was in a car park. Now, anyone else would think, hang on a minute, this is probably not right. But the girl went. She needed the money, and so she drives this car park, and she sees a van, an old van, and this is the only car or vehicle that's in the car park. So she texts. She says, "Yeah, this is my van." So anyone else with a working brain, I think, hang on a minute, I'm going straight back home into bed, tucked up. I'm not going to have anything to do with this. But no, she needed the money. So she knocks on the side of this van, and two people get out, a woman and a man. And the woman says, "Hi, are you Vicky?" Let's say, "Yeah, I'm Vicky. I'm here for the leaflets." She says, "Yeah, no problem. This is my husband. This is our business." Now, when she wrote it out, she told me that the husband never really said much, just like nodded along with what the woman was saying. And she said the woman was very nice, didn't seem crazy or any ulterior motives until the part where they asked her to help take the leaflets from the van to the boot of a car. So the guy opens up the van, and it was a side door. She said when they opened up the van, it was like not just dark inside. It was like it had been painted with. Have you heard of the color Venta black? Have you heard of that color? Which is
I
the
have not.
blackest
No.
black. It's the blackest black you can get. If you paint it on something, it's like there's a hole in the universe. It's really dark. She said that's what it looked
Yeah.
like, and she saw a few of these leaflets on the floor. And this guy was trying to get her to get into the van and take the leaflets out. And she just really, really then in her head thought, this isn't right. He's trying to get him into this van. And then she started noticing that the wife was looking around a lot, seeing if anyone was around, acting really strange. And they were both eager for this girl to get into the van and help them distribute these leaflets back into the boot of this girl's car. So she made some excuses and said, "Look, I've changed my mind here. I don't want to do this." That's when they started getting really nasty with her, saying that she wasted their time. The guy started getting really irate with her. The wife become like a raging fucking lunatic with her, turned on a dime, just like from nice to absolute crazy. So she went back to the car. Now she'd given no details of her address to this couple, and she left them by the van under this street light, just looking at her. So she drove off, and she thought, "I've had like the lucky escape of my life." 3 hours later, the van is parked outside her house. This
Ugh.
old van is parked outside her house, and she's getting text messages giving her address. They text her address and said, "Is this where you live?" So she had to go to the cops then, and it turns out that this couple, I forget what state it was from, but it turns out that this couple again were soliciting younger women in order to people traffic. They were getting girls into the back of this van, selling them on to wherever, down south or whatever, and they've been doing it for a while. It was crazy to read, but then you think to yourself, is it something that's real or is it made up? But then you think it's plausible; it could happen.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I'm not sure how like relevant human trafficking is like in your country. I'm just ignorant. I don't know.
Yeah,
But even like in our area in Michigan, because we're very close. We're literally like 12 to 15 minutes from Canada.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, there is a lot of human trafficking like in the Detroit area. There's a lot of human trafficking in like the suburbs. So like there's a city which Jeremy and I are very familiar with, Westland it's called. And there's like specific spots in Westland that you need to be like extremely careful. Now, mind you, these are like incredibly populated modern areas with well lit. The police station's right in the area. There's a shopping mall right there. But like people know that you should not go in these areas because there's well-known like traffickers that the police just cannot get. And I'm just like that trafficking story. I believe that one more than the first one because it's like
yeah, yeah,
that shit happens like every day.
yeah, yeah,
That's some
yeah.
scary fucking stuff. Not to, I mean, that person who told you that could be full of shit. You don't know,
Yeah,
but Or they could have went on fucking, what is that? Creepy pasta.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is it's totally my story. It's my story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's some creepy stuff though. That's a scary fucking story, man.
I think the thing is with when you get told, I mean, for me, reality is more scary than paranormal ever will be. I mean, when you look at
Ooh,
Ted
that's
Bundy,
deep, but you are correct.
you know, you look at Ted Bundy and you look at people like Joseph Fritzl. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
That crazy guy from Austria that kept his own daughter in a basement for years and years, had 3 or 4 kids,
It's fucked up.
raped daily. I mean, that's the stuff of horror films incarnate. That's, Ed Gein stuff. You can talk about ghosts, Bigfoot, werewolves, whatever, but nothing's as scary as reality. Nothing's as scary as what could happen with humans. We're the scariest things. We are.
We're
We are the scary.
we're the real fucking monsters.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember now that you bring this up that reality is scarier than, like stories, quote unquote. Uh so about a month ago, my other half and I finished for the second time the Narcos series
Yeah,
on Netflix, and it was shortly after. It was actually a couple days after we got done watching that series, which is a great series. We saw that Netflix had a mini documentary series called The Real Inside the Real Narcos, it was called. And it was a journalist that went to the same places that was shown in the show. And he actually was with the police and the actual narcos with his film crew. And they were filming like what actually happens.
yeah,
Uh, he specifically went to like the Sinaloan cartel. And I remember we're sitting there and we're watching this documentary and they're showing like murders happen.
yeah,
And we could not help but like pause it and start talking about that show. And we're like, this is fucking crazier than the
yeah,
Hollywood show that we just watched that was like intentionally trying to be like grotesque and crazy. And I'm like, this is just a 28-minute episode of a documentary and they're showing like dismembered people in the middle of a Mexican street.
yeah,
And it was crazy. Like reality is always going to be scarier than
yeah.
a fucking subreddit, that you can find in the middle of the night. Like reality gets fucked up sometimes.
I mean, I've got some crazy friends, and they've got crazy videos on their phones and stuff. And one of the crazy things I ever saw was the Mexican cartels in South America, and they are brutally, brutally violent. And the crazy thing I saw was, and I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because it's good. I'm just laughing because it's crazy. Um, a guy was kidnapped. He must have done something, snitched or something, and a guy in a balaclava hacked off his leg, hacked it off while he was still alive, and started beating him around the head with it, with his own leg. Just started
Jesus.
beating him with his leg, and then he did the same to his other leg. And it was like he just unpacked some sandwiches. This guy was not the guy who was doing it. Was just, this is another day. This is work, and I just think,
It's
Jesus
crazy.
Christ, yeah,
That's weird. That's a weird part of like the human psyche. If you think like, I remember it was like, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before you made a post about like serial killers.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and like it got me think like I've always been interested in the psychological aspects of serial killers and like psychopaths and all that, like because they're
yeah,
like a black hole of humanity.
yeah,
And that's just crazy that there's like it's not even serial killers. It's just like there's like a whole bunch of people that are in a Mexican cartel or a South American cartel, whatever,
yeah.
and then they're just murdering people, and then they just, hey, what's up, man? Like, what'd you do last night? That's so crazy to me. It's insane.
It's desensitization. And this is the epitome of desensitization. If you do something over and over again, it becomes normal. It's like
Yeah.
abuse. If a child is abused, they are abused that much that it becomes normal, and they don't talk about it. They don't, they don't tell anyone because they think that's normal, and
Yeah.
their friends' houses, and when it's not happening there, then the penny drops, and they think, hang on a minute, this isn't normal, and then start talking about it. It's the same with, you know, any kind of repeated behaviour. I think, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I think we've all got an inner demon in us that will emerge if the circumstances allow. I've got kids. Someone touch my kid, I will turn into Ed Gein, no problem. I will fly that person. I will take their skin, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have that trigger.
Yeah.
If you've got kids, or if you've got loved ones and they get hurt by someone bad enough, your brain will go to dark places of what you want to do to that person. And I think that's part of being human. And because we live in such a civilized society, that is played down, that is dumbed down to a certain extent. I mean, when I was fighting full time, that was my outlet. Controlled violence was my outlet. I could beat someone up in a cage, and I don't have to think, right, I've got to keep a lid on it when I'm outside now. If someone calls me a name or someone, attacks me, I'm a bit more controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for these psychopaths, that lid isn't there. They can't really control themselves. They can't live in normal society. Do you know what I mean?
It's almost like a normal behavior for them.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's insane. That's crazy. What I wanted to ask this question because I feel like someone like you who runs an Instagram page like you do, and you're always researching stuff, and I don't believe that you're like a tinfoil hat kind of a guy. You don't seem like that. You seem like you're very level-headed and a skeptic, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you this question. I'm curious. Who do you think is running the world? In your opinion, based on your experiences and based on, it could even be your bias if you have a bias, but based on and maybe research that you've done, I'm not sure, but who do you think's running things?
Honestly, I mean, I've researched this as well. I've researched Bohemian Grove. I've researched, different big players in the world, Rothschilds and all sorts of stuff like that. I've looked into it. I think the world is always on the edge of a precipice, and the only people that are keeping it off that precipice are people with cash and people with influence. And I don't think it's one person or one group of people. I think, it's off topic a little bit, but look at the Jeffrey Epstein thing where supposedly he killed himself in a cell. I don't believe that. I believe that there was some higher order of influence that allowed that to happen. And if you take that one step or 10 steps further into the world, who's running stuff, I think it's a culmination of people making deals where they have to. I don't think it's just one conglomerate of, the Bilderberg group or one set of bankers, or I think it's a culmination of a lot of people. Because if one set of people were going to rule everything, it would be more obvious. China would be involved in it. Russia would be involved in it. The US, Europe, they would all have to coincide and coexist, and they can't do that anyway. They all hate each other. The world is built on, I want you to do well, but not better than me. That's what the world's built on. And while we've got leaders who are allowing that, I think we're always going to have problems. I don't think there's one set of people running anything. I think from country to country, it differs. I think there's some weird motherfuckers running shit, and I think there's some very nasty. Prince Philip in our country should be on trial. Should be on trial. There's no question. If you go to Jeffrey Epstein's island 40 odd times and now you're at his parties with young girls, questions have to be asked, and you've got to answer them. But the royal family in our country is a protected status. You could get away with fucking. Well, they did. They killed Princess Diana.
Ooh,
they did. 100%.
You're getting into some deep shit here. I like this.
Yeah,
it's good.
She was in. You're not telling me that she disowns the royal family, She finds love somewhere else, not within the royal family. Goes through a fucking tunnel in Paris and doesn't come out the other end. And she just had a car crash. No chance. No chance. And then her husband, Prince Charles, a few years later, marries the woman he's been cheating on her with. Crazy shit.
See,
Crazy.
this goes back to what is more likely.
Yeah.
That's why I like that.
Yeah.
Because it kind of points you towards the truth most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up. I wasn't even thinking about that. No offense, I haven't thought about Princess Diana since I was like a child.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. What's the deal with the Queen? Is she actually like gonna live forever, or what's going on with that?
I think she's some kind of fucking robot that is being controlled by someone, you know. I think she's in her 90s now. I think she's about 92, 93.
Jesus.
She's very well thought of in our country. She's the head of state, but with no real power. I was in the army for a little while years ago, and you swear an oath to the Queen. You know, you'll protect her, not the government. You'll protect her, and that's fine. She's an old woman. I don't mind standing there with the gun protecting her. The government, not so much. But she's well thought of in this country. The royal family isn't. It's seen very much as an outdated, overpaid, selfish, narcissistical group of people, and I agree with that. But she's not bad. I quite like her.
Like, you feel like if she was at a party, you could have a drink with her?
I'd get her drunk, yeah.
You'd get the Queen drunk.
Yeah.
In a minute, we're going to hear someone knocking on your door, and it's going to be the police.
Yeah. I've no doubt. Yeah.
They're going to be like, "Oi, where'd you want to get the Queen drunk?"
Have a good time doing it.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd probably take a couple of shots with the Queen.
Yeah.
I don't even like to drink in public either, or with other people. So that's saying something. That's great. You're right, Jeremy. Lost Jeremy there for a second.
I'm just like the whole drinking with the Queen shit just fucking had me dying for a second.
Well, dude, I mean, go ahead and next time when you like review this episode at a later date and you're like feeling the heaviness of the conversation that we're having, got to bring up the Queen about, you got to bring up having a shot with the Queen. It's not like every day we get someone from the UK on here, so.
Have either of you ever been to the UK?
No, I have not. Does it rain every day? Is that true?
More or less, yeah. It's not the weather system you're ever gonna. So in our country, the weather system is you'll get up at whatever time, 8 o'clock, it's sunny. Then by 10, it's snowing. By 12, it's raining. By 2, it's sunny. You'll have all the seasons in one day, and it's just shit.
That's Michigan in the spring and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have like a couple states like that. So we have like Washington, which sounds exactly like England. And then Chicago's kind of bad like that too. But Michigan is kind of like, when it comes to weather, we're kind of bipolar.
Yeah.
Like it'll be like, shit, it was like October and it was like still like summer weather for a minute. Everybody's like freaking the fuck out. And then you got all like the tinfoil hat people like, oh my God, they're controlling the weather. It's just Michigan. It's Michigan being a bitch, like always.
Does it every year.
Yeah, every year. We never have the same like length of season and severity of seasons every year. It never repeats itself. It's always different.
Yeah, like literally every season. Even in like middle of July, it'll be like cold one day, then 99 the next. It's like go from one extreme to the other. It's just like fuck, help.
Yeah. Do you believe in climate change?
Oof. Jeremy, you go ahead first.
I I can't deny it. I'm like you said earlier. I don't know much about it. So what the experts tell everybody is should be what everybody goes through, but I'm not too certain on that.
Is it because you're not well read on it? You could just say that, Jeremy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't sit there. I'm a gamer, so a lot of my time I spend gaming if I'm not working. So
Jeremy
I'm not.
doesn't care.
I do care. I mean, shit. I want my if I have kids, I want my kids to grow up on a fucking healthy planet, not fucking have to wear fucking gas masks because the fucking atmosphere gets so bad.
Well, we're already wearing masks, so we're getting close to that. We're getting close to that. So give us 20 years we're wearing gas masks because Jeremy doesn't know how to fucking recycle.
I recycle, motherfucker. Fuck off.
Chris, for me, I do believe in climate change, only because I've seen a lot of like objective studies on it that. So let me clarify. I don't believe that human beings right now. I don't think the change is as drastic as certain people are saying that it is. Because if you look at like atmospheric science and geological science, the Earth goes through like climate cycles. So like if you look, we just had an ice age not too long ago. And before that, we went through crazy climates, and then we had an ice age before. So it's like our planet does go through climate cycles. So I will never be the one to say that climate change does not exist, because I feel like scientifically that would be, for me, that would be something that I wouldn't want to say, because I don't think it's true. I mean, like the climate does change.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a little hyperextended to say that we're going to cause the collapse of the climate like in our lifetime. I don't believe that that's going to happen, even if we keep dumping fucking fossil fuels out. Because if you look at the data, if we keep doing what we're doing, which is obviously not the best thing for the planet, it's going to take a long time for something to even happen. There was a geologist, and of course I'm going to forget his name now that I'm on the spot. Randall Carlson. There's a geologist, I believe he's out of Utah, I think. He's one of the state's highly respected geologist and volcanologist, I believe. But he once posted a study. It was like a 35-year study on climates and past climates of the Earth, leading from like the Ice Age up until now. And there is definitive proof that there is a small percentage of what we're doing now that is affecting the climate, but it is a very small percentage. And he kind of put it objectively. He's like, yeah, I don't really think that we should be dumping fucking oil in the oceans. Like, that's probably not good. We probably shouldn't be choking turtles on our straws or running around. And I don't believe everyone should have a fucking diesel motorcycle, if that's even a thing. I'm very dumb, by the way, so I don't even know if that's a real thing. But, you know, like, sure, maybe we should not waste all of our water resources and all this. But he did say, he's like, no, we're not going to fucking burn up the planet in the next 50 years. He's like, that's just impossible, because we would have to have a civilization 50 times the amount of what we have now in order to do that. But he did say that, yeah, probably 1,000, 2,000 years from now, the climate, is going to be completely different. We'll have completely different fauna on the Earth, like whether it be megafauna or even plant life would be different. The atmosphere is going to be different. He even proposed the theory that, planets, surrounding planets in our solar system definitely could have looked different, thousands, if not millions of years ago, because every planet goes through a different climate cycle. So I think that was the longest version of me saying, yes, I do believe in climate change, but I wanted to tell you why.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to a point. I mean, like you say, all the plastic and the shit we dump everywhere that we don't give a fuck about. I always take it back to a bit more of a simpler analogy. So your garden, you won't throw shit in your garden. So why would you throw it in the street? You know, you wouldn't pour waste all over your home because you couldn't live in it. So I think we could help. We could do more stuff to stop the spread of, you know, the carbon data going up and, you know, the ice caps melting and all that shit. But I also think, I wonder what the agenda is for people who are pushing that narrative. I wonder why they are just banging on constantly about what
you
we're
remember
doing.
earlier you said that there are a lot of fucking weirdos. There's a lot of bad people in power. Those people are going to have agendas regardless. You could pick any topic and there's going to be someone with an agenda behind it. And it could be a really stupid topic or a really relevant one. You're always going to find somebody who's like, oh, I could probably make a buck out of this. I mean, you look at, and I can't remember what country, they're doing more carbon taxing now.
Yeah.
Is that your country?
I think it is. I think it's the UK, and I think Europe are doing it as well. Yeah.
And like that, to me, it's like, or okay, you could like regulate like industries on how much they're dumping into the atmosphere. Like, okay, this is clearly someone who's just like, all right, you want to drive your car? You got to give me like, you know, $12. You know, like to me, that's an agenda. You know, and that kind of sucks. But that's the world that we're living in today.
The problem is we allow governments to rule us, who I don't think have any place in ruling anything. It's funny you bring up like taxes and stuff. In this country, there used to be what we called a bedroom tax. A bedroom tax. So if you had a council house, a government given house, and you had a bedroom that wasn't being occupied, you had to pay the government money.
That's crazy.
That's right. Yeah. So if you had a 4-bedroom house, like my mother, when we all moved out as kids, when we got older, she had a 3-bedroom house that she was only occupying one of the bedrooms. So she literally
taxes on your old bedroom
for two.
That's
for
insane.
2 yeah, that's mental. What chancellor would come up with? Oh no, we'll do. She's poor already. She's got 2 extra bedrooms. We'll tax her. We'll take money off her. That's ridiculous.
That's crazy, man.
I mean, healthcare. I mean, people going about the NHS in this country being, you know, great. It's not. It's not. If you want an operation, go private and pay. The US system, you've got Medicare, Medicaid, all those kinds of things. They're not great, but at least you've got options. You know, at least you've got, from state to state, different kinds of insurances that you can have. In this country, that's frowned upon. It's the NHS is God, and I mean, we don't use it. I don't use the NHS. I go private because I want to get seen while I'm ill. If you booked an appointment with a doctor in this country through the NHS, it's a 3-week waiting list. So you're going to be better before the appointment is even there. It's mad. It's mad. And that's when you've got governments in power that have no business being in power. They've got their own agenda. They've got their own ways of thinking about the world. And it's usually richer people that don't give a fuck, you know, which is a shame.
And that's how the rich stay rich, though. I mean, it's terrible. Like, we should not have, like, a good example here. If you go down to, like, we go down to Detroit, me and Jesse go to a baseball game, football game, whatever. How many homeless people will we see down there? That should not be happening. Like, those people, like even me, I'm 20 years old and I get taxed as shit. This shit's ridiculous.
Jeremy, I thought you were going to say that you were homeless for a second. I thought that's what you were leading up to. And I'm like, whose basement
technically,
are you in
I
right
don't
now?
own a home, so I'm technically homeless.
You're actually in my basement. I don't even know it.
Hey, can
you're
you bring me down something to
squatting in my
drink?
basement. Oh, man. I was wondering where all that fucking vape smoke was coming from through my vents.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, Chris, you gave us, man, I actually can't wait to re-listen to this episode because you gave some really creepy fucking stories. I kind of like want one more. You got one more?
I have, yeah.
You're kind of like the internet right now for me. So you got to entertain me for another like 5 minutes because those two stories were creepy as hell.
So, again, I'll get sent these stories. I can't confirm it's real. Some, like you said, someone could have read them on some kind of website, but
Mhm.
it always, if someone's took the time to write it out, I sometimes think, well, listen to it and read it. So, there was a girl from the UK, and she took a job as an estate agent. She just left uni. Um, I think she was about 25, 26, just left university, couldn't find the right job, so needed to pay some bills. Took a job as an estate agent, going round to people's houses, taking pictures. So the houses wouldn't be occupied normally. There would be empty houses. So her job was to go. In fact, I think the university course that she was on was a photography course, but she couldn't find the right kind of job. So a friend got her a job at the agency, taking pictures of houses, living room, bathroom, all the good stuff. And she'd been doing it for a while. She was earning good money off it, so she thought this is pretty cool, doing something I like. Um, she used to get a list of houses she had to visit that week, and she was going through them day by day. And her car must have broken down, or she had some kind of vehicle problem. And her mom, and it is a quite paranormal story. This, her mom took her to a house that was in the sticks, somewhere out where not many people were living. An old house. So she got given the key. Her mom waited outside in the car while she goes in. So as she enters the house, it's a bit of a rundown house as well, like an old farm kind of building. She's going through the house first, having a look around, thinking what shot she's going to take. And she said that she just didn't feel quite right in that house. I mean, if you're going into someone else's house anyway, you never feel quite at home. But with no furniture and no people in there, you feel a bit more intrusive. But she said that at this house, it was heightened. So she's picked her shots out. She's going from room to room, taking pictures of the kitchen, and then she finds a door in the kitchen that is locked. And on the bunch of keys, there's a few extra keys. So she thinks, well, I'll just try the door, see if it's one of these keys. She goes in to this doorway, and it leads down into a cellar. Now there's a chain at the top that she's put the light on, and the light's working, thankfully. But the light is quite dim down there. And she has a moment where she stood at the top of this set of stairs, looking down into this cellar. Now, you don't just look directly down into the cellar. There's a turning, and then the cellar's on the right or the left, whichever way it would be. So you can't really see what's down there. And she stood at the top, and she hears her mother's voice from down in the cellar, from inside the cellar. She hears not just a voice, not just a female voice, her mother's voice saying, I forget her name again, Jessica, will you come down? I need your help. So she didn't put this in the message, but I was thinking to myself, well, was she thinking that her mom had gotten out the car, and while she was upstairs, gone downstairs and fallen, maybe? So she stood at the top of the stairs. She's hearing her mom's voice. So she's stepping down the steps to go down, and she's shouting, "Mom, is that you? Are you okay? What are you doing in here?" But then she remembers that the door was locked, and that she had the only key. And then she hears from upstairs the front door opening, because it's an old house. It was a big wooden door. So she's ran back upstairs, and as she's got to the top, she's hearing a lot of movement now in the cellar. And she's looked behind her, and there's a figure there. It's not. She didn't say whether it was a man or a woman, but she said there was a figure there. And as she's looked in through the kitchen to the front door, her mom is stood at the front door, just stood there. And she's looked back down into the cellar, and the figure's gone. and she's gone out of Dodge straight away. She's left the house. She's jumped back in the car with her mum, and she said her mum drove because it was her car, and she didn't speak to her mum all the way back. And mum was trying to say to her what had happened. She just said, "We need to leave. We need to go." So the next day, she's got an email from her boss because she worked from home. She didn't really have an office in there. She's got an email from her boss saying, "Did you take the pictures of the house and stuff?" And she said, "Yeah." She'd not looked at the pictures until she'd been prompted to on this email. As she's opened up the file from the memory card, in every single room was the slightest glimpse of the same figure, maybe around a corner, maybe in the hallway, but a slight glimpse of this figure. And I did say to her, have you still got the images? And she said, "I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of images on my computer, and I can't find them." She emailed them to her boss, all these pictures of the house. But she says, I don't work for them anymore. I haven't got the images anymore. They've gone from my computer. They're not on there anymore. I've not deleted them. They're just not there. And she's got all these other pictures of houses that she's taken pictures of. And after reading what she'd put, I thought, it sounds quite far-fetched, but when you read something and you get a feeling that someone's lying, someone's not telling the truth. I didn't get that. I didn't get that feeling. I didn't get that she was telling porkies. I didn't get that she was lying. She seemed quite normal. And her Instagram was quite normal. She wasn't someone who was interested in ghosts and stuff. She didn't post about it was a boyfriend on holiday and stuff that she posted about. So I just thought, maybe there's something to it.
So there was no like incentive for her to even tell you this?
No. I put out a little post saying, "Would you tell me about any experiences that you've had?" And she said, "I've got an experience." She didn't even message me out the blue the full story. She said, "I've got something that you might be interested in that happened to me when I was a bit younger." I said, "Yeah, cool." And when I read it, I thought, "Holy shit, that's weird as fuck."
That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's very, very unnerving that she heard her mother's voice.
Yeah, fuck that. I would you want to see a fat man run fast?
Yeah, just there'd be a puff of smoke where Jeremy once sat.
It'd be like a Looney Tunes, just fucking pew! Like Scooby Doo, you hear the fucking my feet in place and then gone.
Yeah.
That's some creepy shit. Well, one of these days, and probably soon, Chris, I'm going to be responding and sending you a message because I got some crazy stories. I used to dabble when I was very younger, like in my like late teens and early 20s. I used to dabble in a lot of the occult stuff.
Okay.
Back when I was a curious moron, and I did a lot of like Ouija board sessions. I did a lot of like paranormal investigations. Had a lot of creepy stuff on recordings, which I still have. I actually have my recorder right here. So still have them on my recorder. There's hundreds of files from just a couple of years of doing shit.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of good stories that I'll probably send you that you can feel free to share with your followers. But
yeah,
it was actually I'm really glad that we got you on tonight.
Cool.
So I knew like the moment that I started following your Instagram and I was reading the shit you were posting, I was like, I either need to just message this guy and talk to him like on a personal level to pick his brain, or I need to get this dude on the podcast. So we're really, really thankful that you were able. I understand that it is like in the middle of the morning where you're at.
Yeah.
All right.
And it just hit midnight here.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you being up and willing to chat with us. We 100%, I know I can speak for Jeremy and Jake.
Yeah.
We definitely want you back on here.
Oh, yeah.
In the future. Because I know that you gave us 0.1% of the information that you've gathered over the course of your life. So, Jeremy, you got anything in closing?
No, like you said, I'm just happy, glad you got on here and hung out with us, and shared your stories and stories people told you, and it's just mind blowing some of the stuff that you can learn from someone else. Like, it's just
Yeah.
crazy, especially like you being from England and us from the United States. It's huge that we've actually reached out further and further. Like, I really appreciate you being on here. It's an amazing thing.
No problems. What are your plans with the podcast going forward? Then, what do you guys intend to do? Do you tend to grow it? Intend to grow it further? Put it on YouTube or?
So Jake and Jeremy were the ones that started the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asked to join a while back. I was one of their guests. Was I your first guest or your second guest?
You were the first and second, I believe. Yeah, because we didn't have anybody
So
else
first
on.
and second guest.
Yeah, we didn't have anybody else
Um,
on until you actually like fully started with us.
that's true. So Jake's baby is this documentary film that he's working on, and Jake and I have discussed that like my baby is the podcast. And my goal for the podcast is just keep growing and keep grinding on it. It definitely was really cool to be able to talk to someone outside of our own country.
Yeah.
And I literally had no idea that you were in the UK until you were talking about, or I think it was when I said the time, and you're like, where do you live? And I'm like, oh, we live in Michigan. You're like, yeah, I'm in the UK, bro. Like, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we normally do it as like a weekly thing if we can, and we're just booking as many people as we can. It would be great to blow up and become, a lot bigger than we are, but just getting to talk to people is a
Yeah.
huge payoff. Huge payoff. I mean, when we started, we had like 10, maybe 10 people that would listen, and I didn't even give a shit about that. Like, it was just really cool to talk to, interesting people with interesting stories. And hopefully because of the podcast, you get, a little bit of spotlight. Again, anyone listening to this, make sure you check him out at Strange States on Instagram. You'll definitely be up for hours reading his shit. Chris, you got lots of good stuff on your Instagrams. Probably one of my favorite Instagram pages right now, because it's all like mind-blowing shit that's on there. You haven't posted a boring story yet.
No, my attention span's not good, so I have to like what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been really good to be on, and I'm sure you'll continue to have guests on and get as many listeners and viewers as you want. I mean, I think success breeds from good content, and I think you're going to do that. So yeah, good stuff.
We appreciate you, sir. We appreciate the kind words. Again, we'll be reaching out to you. Well, I'll probably be reaching out to you off and on from here on out. But we'll definitely schedule again sometime soon. Hopefully in the future, we'll get you on here with Jake so he can speak with you as well.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you got anything else in closing or no?
No, like I said earlier, thank you for so much for coming on. It's really like I said, awesome that we're talking to somebody. Yeah, it kind of sucks for you being up till probably what 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning now.
It's all good. It's all good.
And it's just really cool to hear someone else's perspective from, like he said earlier, someone from a completely different country and completely different area of the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool, guys.
All right. Well, we're going to close out. Chris, thanks again. Everyone, you can check us out at Table Talk Entertainment on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, apparently TikTok now. Wasn't my decision. You can also find us on Anchor FM, Spotify, YouTube, and probably like 15 other social media platforms and podcasting platforms. You'll figure it out. Chris, thank you for joining us, sir.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Have a good night.
See you later.
All right.